Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy! Hey, great girlfriends. I hope you're having a marvelous day. I know summer's coming to a close. We're in back to school mode, and there are so many important conversations that I'm continuing to bring to the forefront, specifically around health and wellness for women. I am so honored to have partnered with Healthy Women with support from Daiichi Sankyo and Merck to bring to you a conversation around lung cancer with Dr. Erhunmwunsee. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I know that you have all the answers to all the questions that we need, that we've been thinking about. There's so many myths around lung cancer that I think we've all lived with and we've popularized. And there's things that we need to really discuss, particularly around women and women of color, that will help us be sort of proactive around our decision making and our environments, and just conversations that we need to also have in our circles. So I'm happy to have your expertise today.
Thank you so much. And it was such a pleasure to be here. And I love that we're talking about lung cancer. There's no question that it is under discussed in our community. So I'm glad to be here.
So why do you think it's under discussed? Tell me what do you think keeps us from talking about it?
Absolutely. Well, I think there are a couple of main reasons and some smaller ones. One, folks believe and still think that lung cancer is a smoker's disease. And so if you're not smoking, you're like, okay, that's not on me. And they think it's an old person's disease. And so if you're not old, well, that's not me. But unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that none of that's true. Anyone with lungs can get lung cancer. And the truth is that the number one cancer killer in the world, the number one cancer killer in this nation, is still lung cancer. So we need to be talking about it. So, if you add up who died from breast cancer and who dies from colon cancer and who dies from prostate cancer, lung cancer is more than all three of those combined, right?
Really?
Know that. No, yeah, it's absolutely true. And so that's why I love these discussions, because I think sometimes people are like, that can't be true. Why is she lying to us? And it's, I'm not. It is in fact true, and that's why we've got to talk about it.
Okay, so to clarify for myself and a great girlfriend who's going, not breast cancer, lung cancer is the number one cancer killer.
Yes.
For women in the world, or just period?
All of it.
Wow.
In the world, in the US, for women, for men, it is lung cancer, lung cancer, lung cancer.
Get out of here. Wow. Well, there's obviously prevalent conversation around breast cancer and its effect on women as far as a killer, but this is really, for me, eye-opening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And I think for most people, and that's why I think we can't just focus on one cancer. What we've got to do is sort of change our perspective to think about whole body health. Right. As a woman, of course, you're going to be thinking about breast cancer, because I think it's more in the news. We have friends who struggle with it. We see how it's depicted, but we also have to be talking about lung cancer as well as colorectal cancer, like all of it we can get. And so we've got to know how to prevent it, how to understand if we've got it, and what to do about it. So, yeah.
Okay, so then tell me about our at-risk populations. Like I'm hearing like you, and you.
Yeah.
But prevalence, give us a sense of like who it's impacting the most, like AIDS, MO, everything that we want to see.
So it's true. So that would say that we know now that 80%-ish of people with lung cancer are smokers, right? And 20% of folks, 20 is not zero, it's not 10, 20% of folks who've never smoked are 20% of the people who get lung cancer have never smoked. So it's important, again, to understand that we're talking hundreds of thousands of people who will die from the disease. 20% of those folks have never smoked. So again, it's important to understand that it is everybody who can get it, right? Certainly the average age for lung cancer is still sort of in the 60s and 70s. There's no questions about that. But unfortunately, we see young people. I have cared for people in their 30s and 40s with lung cancer, right? And so sometimes It's important to know what that looks like and understand like who can be impacted.
Mm. So, and when we talk about smokers, are we speaking specifically to nicotine? Are we talking marijuana? Are we talking vape pens?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's, I am happy to talk about the data we have right now, but I
Mhm.
want to be clear. I'm gonna give you my recommendations even as I give you the data, right?
Okay,
So the data is right now, it is cigarette smoking that
okay.
is leading the smokers who get lung cancer, right? It is cigarette
Mhm.
smoking. So not marijuana, and we don't even think vaping right now, but there is a lot of data or a lot of studies trying to understand if that is in fact true, especially around vaping. The truth is,
Mhm.
it is still a relatively new entity. And so
Mhm.
we don't have long-term data around it. And so there are a lot of studies that are trying to understand, hey, is that vaping contributing to lung cancer or not, as well as marijuana. So we don't have that data yet, but we have the most strongest data is around cigarette smoking. But what I will say is we already have data that vaping and marijuana smoking, and I'm saying this out loud to everybody, is not good for your lungs. It just isn't. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, and people often will come up to me and be like, okay, but I can smoke this, that, and I'm like, look, if we are, so there is, we've got to think about lung cancer and how to,
Mhm.
but we also got to think about lung health, right? Our, it's not just about preventing cancer, it's about having the strongest lungs possible so we can live our most robust lives. You need your lungs to live. I don't care what you're trying to do, lungs
Mhm.
are necessary. And so, and we know that vaping does not improve your lung function. In fact, it decreases it. And it certainly influences like your infection rates, inflammation rates, as does smoking marijuana. And so what I tell my patients and people who ask me is don't be smoking this stuff. It's not good for your lungs, even if we don't have data that today connects it to cancer risk.
Mm. That's good. That, and listen, as a California resident,
Yeah.
not even California anymore. Now I feel like around the world we're just seeing an increased rate of marijuana intake and
Oh,
vaping,
absolutely.
specifically vaping at a
Absolutely.
younger age. And
Absolutely, right.
yeah.
And I am anti-vaping. I'm gonna say that very clearly as a thoracic surgeon, as a lung cancer expert, but also as a health equity person, advocate, and expert and researcher. I would say that vaping is like the wrong answer for population health, because what happens is our young ones, our youth are exposed to it. They get it easily, and it actually has led to an uptick in their tobacco use. If that makes sense. Like,
Mm.
there, if you can see the trends, and there was, the percentage of youth. And so I'm talking middle school, high school folks who are smoking real cigarettes has gone up because of vaping, because they're like, oh, okay, I'm a vape. And then it's like almost like, I hate using the word gateway because it ages us, but it's like that has led to an increase in their smoking. And that is the wrong answer. We need
Hmm.
everybody to stop smoking. We don't need the youth to start it. And so
Hmm.
vaping has been a problem for us.
Hmm. So then we talk about Black women, we're seeing a rise or increase in the number of lung cancer cases, specifically around Black women. And I'm seeing that it's Black women who've never smoked.
Mhm.
So why is that the case?
So Sybil, I want to, and some of this might just be academic and semantics, but I like to say things precisely as I can.
Okay.
So there is a lot of news around like people getting cancer at younger age, right? Like you just,
Hmm.
right? And so that is, we see that with colorectal cancer and some of the other gastrointestinal cancers. That has not been stated clearly for lung yet. Okay.
Okay.
So when we say, okay, folks are getting cancer at a younger age, for many cancers, that's true. For lung cancer, that has not been fully, that there's controversy, let me say it that way, around that.
Okay.
So that's one part, right? So maybe it's not clear that we're getting it younger. But what is clear is that Black women who have never smoked will get lung cancer at a higher rate than white women who have never smoked. That is important to know, right? And that Black woman who has never smoked, when she gets lung cancer, will have a higher death rate from lung cancer than a white woman who's never smoked, who's gotten lung cancer. So the disparity remains. Black women have a higher chance of getting lung cancer, even though they haven't smoked, than other groups. And when they get it, have a higher rate, a higher death rate. I think there are lots of reasons for that. I'm gonna, I've done work in this area. I believe that the neighborhoods that Black and African Americans have been relegated to because of redlining, because of structural racism, because of segregation, are often more polluted, less good, healthy food, less green space, and are less healthy. And I believe that influences the rates and risks of cancer, particularly lung. And so the work that my research program looks at is, hey, what is that link? And so we partnered with the Black Women's Health Study, which is a strong, robust study that has literally followed 59,000 Black women since 1995. And
Wow.
yes, and so a number of them have experienced cancer. And we looked at their cohort, their study, all of these women, and we pulled out the people who had lung cancer, the Black women who got lung cancer, having never smoked. And what we found out is that the women who had never smoked, who got lung cancer, were more likely to live in what we consider a disadvantaged neighborhood, right? More poverty, less green space, less healthy food. And so it allows us to get to a point where we stop blaming people, blaming us for everyone always talks about, oh, you're not compliant. Oh, it's the bad, folks are smoking and folks' diet is poor. We need to shore that up and do better there. But also it is our neighborhoods that could be causing us to have issue and problems. And we need to know that.
That's really big because when you think about the impact of having those, urban spaces, and you see oil plants, immediate, right? You see them right in close proximity to our neighborhoods, and you're seeing energy plants and trucking flow in and out of a neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. Sybil, you hit it right on the head, right? This it's important to understand that our neighborhoods have been connected in sort of undesirable areas for decades, right? And even when we as a community try to get into better neighborhoods, more advantaged neighborhoods, there are policies and practices that stop that. Right. And so we might get access to stuff that is connected to oil refineries or busing depots or just places that literally are polluting. We are literally usually closer to polluting organizations and manufacturing than any other group. And that is one, that we need to be fighting that more. Two, we need to understand it. And three, we've got to be able to articulate that is part of the reason we are at higher risk with some of these things.
So then when you think about screening and sort of creating awareness for populations, should people who've never smoked get screened, or how early should screen? Talk about the influence or impact of screening on really kind of care and treatment and even prevention, if anything.
Screening is absolutely important. Lung cancer screening in particular is something that is woefully underused, and it's unfortunate because it can save so many lives, more than colonoscopy, more than mammography. And so we really got to do a better job about it. I will say that lung cancer screening, so first of all, let me just say out loud, if you smoke at all, please talk to your primary care physician about getting lung cancer screening. Just roll up on them and be like, hey, this lady said that since I smoked that I should talk to you about getting lung cancer screening, and just go ahead and do that. I will say, because it does in fact save lives. It is a very easy screening modality. All you have to do is undergo a CT scan that takes seconds, and we ask that it be done every year to evaluate whether there is cancer within your lungs, because we understand the earlier we find it, the more likely you are to be cured. And so it is imperative that if you have smoked, if you are smoking, that you consider. Now, there are rules around it. So now if you smoke for more than 20 pack years, so that means like a pack of cigarettes for 20 years, that's 20 pack years. It's the number of years times the number of packs of cigarettes multiplied together, right? So 20 times one pack equals 20 pack years. So what the guidelines are is that 20 pack years of smoking puts you at high risk for getting lung cancer, higher risk of getting lung cancer. So you should be screened. And if you're 50 years old to 80 years old, those are the guidelines today. Hey, I've smoked for greater than 20 pack years. I'm greater than 50. I should be screened. And then the insurance companies will pay for it. What we know is that those guidelines are not perfect, and they certainly aren't helpful to those who don't smoke, right? Because I just told you it's based on smoking. And what we know for sure is that minoritized and communities don't always fit into those guidelines. You might know that the first set of guidelines were like in 2013. Those guidelines suggested, or the guidelines really stated, that you should get low dose CT if you've smoked 30 pack years and were greater than 55 years old. Well, and those guidelines were based on a 90% white study population, 90% white, and mostly affluent. And so from that study, it was thousands of people in the study, 90% of them are white. They were like, oh, okay, the right answer for this is 30 pack year greater than 55. So we rolled those guidelines out, and then we were like, uh-oh, there are a lot of Black people. There are a lot of Latinos. There are a lot of people who are getting lung cancer who aren't even eligible to screen. You see what I'm saying? So folks are getting lung cancer, and they weren't 55 years old. They had 30 pack years. And what we're starting to see in our Black community is that folks get lung cancer younger.
Right.
And they get lung cancer smoking less cigarettes. So the guidelines for screening are flawed, but that's what we have now. So at the very least, if you meet the criteria, 20 pack year, greater than 50 years old, please go get screened. And we are hoping to expand. There are a lot of studies right now trying to expand to look at never smokers and how we screen for those folks. Like, do we look at your neighborhoods? Do we look at family history? Do we look at air pollution levels? What do we do? Or occupational exposures, right? A lot of people get lung cancer from their jobs. And so there's a lot of robust studies research trying to understand what we do with that.
Or if you're living with a smoker.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So secondhand smoke, we know, is a significant cause of lung cancer, and that has to be considered, and it's not right now.
So am I hearing you say impartiality that socioeconomic status plays a role in one, smoking and the rate at which you smoke?
Yes.
And
100%.
racial association with any of this, right? As I'm here, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so disadvantaged high stress community increases the likelihood of smoking more and at a younger age.
Yeah. So socioeconomic status in disadvantaged neighborhoods almost universally are correlated with worst behaviors, lower healthy behaviors, and increased risk and death rates from cancer, period, as a rule, right? So you would be hard pressed to find the cancer now where rich people get it at a higher rate, right? And certainly where the more affluent have worse outcomes. That's just not the way it works now, right?
Mhm.
And I think part of that, I mean, there's a lot, but I do think it's stress, like allostatic
Mhm.
load is something that, we're starting to understand more, like literally poverty and not having control of one's life, and all of the sort of disadvantage literally erodes your immune system, and it can lead to poor coping behaviors, right?
Mhm.
So that is absolutely important to understand, but it also can lead to higher inflammation that can lead to more cancer, right? And that's why it's important for us to understand that, like, racist policies and practices that were put in place with intention to to disadvantage certain groups literally can and does cause stress and inflammation and decrease in our immune capacity that can lead to cancers and poor health. And so we've got to stop this sort of flow someplace. You know what I mean? We got to
Mhm.
call it and then try our best to impact and influence it. And that's what we hope to do.
Mm. This is so enlightening because I think about when you start talking about the screening guidelines and the high risk populations and they are not connected. I begin to think of people having to make their daily choices of whether or not, if I don't qualify for the screening, my insurance doesn't cover it. Can I afford the screening? Am I showing symptoms? Maybe I don't need a screening. It's not that bad. Let me just forsake this, or if I can't afford, to make these choices, I'm prioritizing my finances. This doesn't hit the top of the list. It's just another stressor.
That's exactly right. And that's why um though I love the way you articulate that. It is so very true. Like, they're competing interests, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when there's more disadvantage or more stress, it is hard for some of these things to come up on the priority level. And I think that's where our health systems and our sort of social systems and even like our government, we've got to think about how we care for people we got to do it differently. Like, it doesn't make sense for you to just have the ability to go to your doc or to the radiology center during the week. People got to work, right? Like, if
Right.
it's 9 to 5, when I have to work to feed my
Hmm.
kids, I'm never going to get there, right? When we don't think about,
Right.
like, the needs for transportation or the health, or maybe like the lack of health literacy, you may not fully understand all the things, or language differences. Like, there, so the point is,
Hmm.
like, you bring up the fact that there's just so many different barriers that can
Hmm.
keep us from getting to good. And so we got to understand what those barriers are, and we've got to help sort of mitigate the gaps. And it's true that the most burdened groups who have the highest risk of these diseases often have the highest burden in getting access as well. So you got not one, but two different strikes against us. And that's why we see the disparities.
Hmm. So then when I think about the population of women that we talk about who've never smoked, but their numbers are on the rise, I'm imagining that they are 50 and over because they've had a screening for the most part. And are we thinking in terms of like lifestyle that they live a high stress lifestyle? Maybe they are, what do we think is building or guiding them to that? Is it still environment for them?
That's a good question. So there's a lot of, again, research going into this. We think that some of it might be genetics. Some of it
Ah,
still might be secondhand smoke. It's
mhm,
certainly a lot of it is, we imagine it's going to be air pollution, exposure, radon exposure. So radon, we know it leads to cancer risk. And
mhm,
but there's again that stress that we don't really understand fully. The sort of wear and tear on our body, on our insides, on our emotions, can, I think, lead to cancer. And we're still sort of teasing all of that out. So I want to say this again. Certainly it is our women still who are in their 60s and 70s who are more likely to get lung cancer, right? More
mhm,
likely. So when
mhm,
you're in your 30s and 40s, getting lung cancer is still a rarity at this point. And so what I would say to people is don't let symptoms last for more than 2 weeks before you get them evaluated. Because when you're a 30-year-old, no one's going to think you have lung cancer. And when you're a 40-year-old, no one's going to think you have lung cancer. And you likely don't. Okay. But don't let anything last for more than 2 weeks. If it's been 2 weeks and you still have it, go to your primary and say, I'm concerned about the fact that I'm still coughing, that I'm losing weight or whatever else. And so I would like us to evaluate for, can I get a chest x-ray? Can I get a chest CT? You know what I mean? Like those are the sorts of things that you can have a conversation with your docs about. But we're not going to be screening people in their 30s and 40s quite yet. We just aren't. But if you have concerns, please find a physician who is your advocate, who you can be open with, and let them know that you're concerned about your symptoms and that you want to do something about it.
Okay, that's really helpful because when you start naming symptoms, I'm like, okay, that for us gives us a kind of scope of what you could possibly be experiencing on a daily basis that is indicative of a need for evaluation. But how do you protect yourself? One thing that you said at high frequency was stress and that impact of stress. And when I think lung cancer, I think of external factors influencing internal health. But what I'm hearing you say is those things that we carry internally, mental stress, worries, pressures can possibly also lead to a lung cancer, a diagnosis. So how do you protect yourself if you never smoked and you want to prevent lung cancer?
I know, I think it's a great point and a great question. So I want to say that there's not yet a clear line between someone's stress and they get lung cancer. Okay. That isn't clear yet. What I believe is that stress and the increase of the allostatic load, like we were talking about, causes increased inflammatory processes that we know can lead to cancer. So that work is still being done. So what I would say for my sisters out there is the way we protect ourselves is no one should be smoking around you, period, in a sentence. Like I'm not like, that's not a thing, right? Like, so if folks are smoking, I would not frequent those establishments. That's one. Two, be cognizant of the pollution that is around you, right? So that might mean having a filter, a filter in your home or in your office. That might mean, on high pollution days, and the EPA and some other organizations have like apps that can tell you about that. Like maybe you are aware, maybe you mask those days, maybe you stay in those days, you know what I mean? So I think being sort of understanding those, that data is also important. And I do think that living an overall healthy life, and that's balanced. That means you need to be resting, sister. Like you need to rest, like like sleep, like go to bed, right? Like shut it off, like get your 7 or 8 hours, drink your water, get your, you know what I mean, your over 8 cups in, be exercising, be moving. Movement is medicine. Like you know what I mean? These are the things that we have control over. So move, eat well, a well-balanced diet is important. Get your protein, get your veggies, get your fruits, get a well-balanced diet. What I say to people is, we can only do so much. Some of it is going to be sporadic. Some of it is going to be stuff that we have no control over. So let's take control of what we have control over. Go to bed. Like, if folks are stressing you out, cut it. Like, you know what I mean? And one of the things I'll say is, let's say you never get lung cancer. Amen. I pray that for you. But we also don't want to live a life on the brink. Like, oh my gosh, like I just barely made it through 2024. Like what? Let's figure out a way to live life like inspired and whole and full. Let's find a way to live a life that's balanced and restful and find some ease in it and joy, Lord. Like, and I think for the Black woman at that intersection, it is harder for us sometimes because there's such a load that's placed on us by our families and communities and by us. We would put it on ourselves. And what I'm saying, sis, like put it down, right? Like figure out a way to like not carry it all. And because I think, yes, we want to prevent lung cancer, right? Fine. But we also want to live life well, right? Like, don't we? Like, don't we got a right to? Let's live life well. And that means sleeping, go to bed, like eat well, go
Yes.
for a walk, don't like you ain't gotta work 12 hours a day. Like,
Hmm.
or I mean, like let's make decisions that prioritize our health. And if we do that well, that will also lower our risk for the cancers and for the heart disease and for all the other things that try to ail us. Like, right, but we gotta prioritize ourselves.
Hmm. That's so good. That's the essential message right now. And I think,
That's right.
we see a lot of conversation about it, lightly in social media. And you hear, you hear people sort of mentioning and throwing it out, to have better boundaries and to really, be a better steward of your oasis. That's something that we heavily promote on this show.
That's right.
When you hear it from a medical doctor saying this is significantly impacting your overall quality of life and your health and
Yeah.
your longevity,
Yes.
your
Yes.
longevity, you
Yeah.
know, it's increasing risk factors. I love that these are the variables, great girlfriends, that we can control. These are things that we can normalize that help to protect and keep our bodies whole. I love that message from you. So did I hear it from me? Dr. Irunse said
Yeah.
it.
Yes. And I love partnering to get that message out. I
Yeah,
see patients in their 70s and 80s and growing their 90s, and there are some people who are winning, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah,
there's some who aren't, right? So we make
yeah.
a decision today. I'm not gonna be winning today so that I can be winning in 40, 50 years or not. And listen, the person who's winning in their 90s and 80s and 70s is not overworked right now. Right?
That's
Like you
right.
just you at some point we just got to say, you know what? This is my life. I only get the one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can't devote it to so many other things that don't give us a return. We
Hey,
got to get a
there we
return
go.
on that
There
investment.
we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this has been so informative. So I take it that this is your why. This is what keeps you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, easily. Yeah, I am purposed to bring light and love and truth to the people, right? I am an advocate for the marginalized and minoritized. I am the person, I feel like I've been given some skills and gifting to be able to say a hard thing in a way that people get it and understand it. And usually, sometimes not, but usually without judgment, right? Like I can
Yeah.
just be like, well, that's not how I would do it. And so yes, this is my one, and I believe in um using data to show us a path forward and being clear about how society has wronged the marginalized so that we can fix it, right? Does that make sense? Like
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
not okay to be like, oh, it sucks that Black people have worse outcomes. It doesn't just suck.
Yeah.
There was intention. So what are we
Yep.
going to do about it, right? And so
Yes.
I am here to sort of be the person um who can say that, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. I want to thank you, Dr. Irunse, for taking the time to be here with us, the great girlfriends. You can't see them, but they are all cheering and giving you a huge round of applause because this episode is so informative. And great girlfriends, do take this episode, like, share, subscribe, pass it around to all of your great girlfriends. It's an essential conversation. It is not age specific, it's life specific. And I do think that the more awareness we have around lung cancer, the more we can help to create room to regulate, legislate, and be
Yeah,
more informed around equity in this space, right?
wait, that's
To
right. Yeah,
support the
look
work
into
that you're
that.
doing.
Yes.
Yes. So, Dr. Irunse, where can we keep up with you on maybe LinkedIn, social media?
Yeah, yeah, girl.
Okay, okay.
I wish I were better at this. I'm trying to get my socials right, but I am on LinkedIn. I
Okay.
I have a X account, Twitter/X, whatever you call it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying. I don't want to lie to the people. I'm not trying really, but one day, hopefully, I would try to do more of the social things, social media thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're LinkedIn, Dr. Irunse, or
Oh, okay. Wow. I think so on X, I'm Loretta EMD.
okay.
Loretta EMD. And then on LinkedIn, I think I'm either Loretta E or Loretta underscore my last name. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm a mess. I don't know the things like that.
Listen, we can't get it all done, but we get the important things done, right?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying. Yeah.
Listen, go look for her. That's the point. Go look for her great girlfriends. Go find her. And when you find her, make sure you tell her that you're a great girlfriend and that you really love this episode with her and you want to hear more from her around this topic. I just want to give a special thanks to Healthy Women again for bringing us together. They always pick the right practitioners, the best leaders in the industry. And I am so grateful for them locating the best advocates and the best women to really have these conversations. So thank you so much, Healthy Women, for being such a faithful and devoted media partner. Thank you so much, Dr. Loretta. We've had a wonderful time with you, and I look forward to seeing and hearing more from you and supporting in every way possible.
All right, great girlfriends, did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends, follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends, and on Twitter at @the_great GFS. I'm Sybil Erhunmwunsee, and I'm out. Peace.